Welcome to the One Stop Crop Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things farming, conservation, and the environment right here in Sandusky County. In today's episode, Zach will be interviewing board member and producer Don Binger about his thoughts on farming and conservation. Hello and welcome back to the One Stop Crop Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randolph, and I'm here today with Don Binger, and we're going to be talking about his thoughts on farming and conservation. So, tell us a little about yourself, Don.
My name's Don Binger. I'm one of 5 board members here at the Sandusky County Soil and Water Board. On my second term now, would be about my 5th year going into it, and I'm the newest member on the board, actually. So the other guys been here longer, and they're the smart ones, but I
didn't know that, actually.
No, I was the last one there. So the other guys have been here longer than that, and they're really a good group of guys, and they've got a lot going on here since H2 Ohio started. I mean, they're kind of busy. Well, not as much as, you guys. It's interesting to see behind the scene what you guys do here. Like I said, especially since H2 Ohio come on. You guys are really busy, and there's a lot going on here.
So would you have come on, basically right when H2 Ohio kind of started, or was it just before?
Just before.
Okay.
Just before. So it was a little bit slower at that point, but 3-year terms we serve. I had a 3-year term down. I've had 2 years into it now. So I've been here, long enough to, get the behind the scenes look at stuff. And it's a lot more interesting than I, first anticipated it would be. What's going on here? You guys do a lot of stuff. So, and then I farm, about 1,400 acres at the southeast end of the county. That'd be York Township. If you go out of my driveway, across the road, that's Sandusky County. I'm right on the county line road.
Okay.
And if I turn left and go probably 5 miles, I'm in Huron County. If you turn left from there and go north, you're in Erie County. So I'm at the very corner right there. I farm with my boy Cole Binger. He's been helping me probably 3 years now. He worked at Penske there, a division of Whirlpool where they loaded the semis there. He loaded, washing machines and stuff there on the semis. And he did that for a couple years. He's helping me now. And then my stepson, Josh Churchill, helps. I'll call him full-time, but he always has a side gig going on somewhere. He does concrete work with a buddy of his, and he's helping, right now he's helping D2X Excavating. He helps them fairly often. He's at the rail yards in Chicago. He's doing work down there all week. So when we got time, he's off doing something else quite a bit of the time. I'd say I'm a 3rd-generation farmer. My grandpa bought the farm in the 50s where I live that I own now, and my dad was in the Army. He came home, started farming, a year or 2 after Grandpa bought the farm. I was born, raised there, dairy farm, grew up with dairy farm. He sold the dairy cattle just as I got out of high school. And so I guess I would say I'm 3rd generation, being Grandpa farmed it some from there.
So how did you get started with farming? Was it a family tradition or a personal choice?
Well, some of both. Tradition was it, but I knew that's what I wanted to do, so it was a personal choice on that level. Dad, this would be the long question here. Dad started, my grandpa actually bought the farm back when, and Dad came out of the Army and started farming. We grew up on a dairy farm, which wasn't my thing I was most interested in. But he had the dairy farm till I was just out of high school. And at that point, he retired. He retired early and walked away. And I took over the farm. He co-signed for the loan and said, "You want to take over?" And I said, "Yeah." But the dairy was out of it at that point. I started dirt farming then because that wasn't Dad's big thing. He had registered Holsteins, and he did pretty good with them. He took them to the shows at Harrisburg and Ohio State and Madison, to the national shows there. They did pretty good. I stayed home and did the work while they were doing that. And I was always into the crop farming end of things. So we had just the home farm, 100 acres there, maybe 80 acres across the road. I took over the farm across the road, got sold. So I started with just 100 acres, but it's definitely what I wanted to do, and I liked it. And we took off from there. That was probably about the early 80s when interest rates went up to 16-17%. It was a pretty tough go at first, and I didn't know that much about farming. It was truly a sink or swim kind of thing. Dad just kind of let me go, And I started from there, and little by little, I worked here and worked there. I had jobs. Oh, I worked at the sugar mill here in Fremont, there at Pioneer. It was GW Sugar then, and I worked at electrical machine repair. I worked at Gibbs Equipment in Bellevue. I worked at different places while I was farming, at that time to make ends meet. And little by little, I started farming. Oh, was good friends with a lot of the neighbors and started farming with some of them and helped them. And little by little, when they retired, I got some more ground here and there, and it took off from there.
Cool. Yeah, so something that I actually haven't really talked much about actually in the office at all. My great grandma, I think, she used to have a farm that my grandpa and his brother used to like work on and stuff. This was back in like the Cleveland-ish area. I can't remember exactly where, but in that area where some farm. It was a very small farm, but like, I remember my grandpa telling me a couple of years ago that he really enjoyed it, and then once he actually became a chemist afterwards, so he didn't go down that path. But I thought it was interesting that there is actually some amount of farming in my in my background.
Well, from the Cleveland area up there, we haul some straw and stuff up there. That has expanded in the last 10, 15 years or so much that a lot of the farms that I went to and delivered hay or straw to are just built up in condos and businesses and stuff. It's just expanded terrible on the south side of Cleveland.
I agree. The urbanization of that area is like
it's huge.
It's huge. Whereas like here, luckily, a lot of Sandusky County is still the farm, which is really good. Mm-hmm. So I think you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but what type of like crops / products do you kind of like produce?
Mm-hmm. The usual corn and beans. I still grow wheat, probably 250 acres of wheat a year is what I'll do. That goes along with I have some cattle. So my stepson Josh does the go-kart race there in Clyde, and that takes a few thousand bales of straw there. So he's got a gig doing that. So we make some straw and then we still sell it. And then after that, semi-trailers come in and he sells it to 3 or 4 different construction outfits. We'll just load it on there and it's gone. But we still have customers for hay and straw, so we'll do that. And then the wheat just right now we're interseeding it with clover this weekend. So we'll have clover with that and we'll bale a lot of that. So we'll have a lot of clover hay plus 50 acres of dedicated alfalfa orchard grass hay. And then the steers anywhere from 50 to getting near 100, depending at the time. And so I sell freezer beef, own corn, barley, soybean meal from the bean plant, and livestock manure. And then I always grow some barley. I guess that's probably about it.
So a decent assortment of
a
little
bit of
everything sort of
in there. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what does a typical day look like for you on the farm?
Typical day, we start every morning. It'll be chores, with the steers. I go out, I feed the cats, feed the steers, go down the road where I have other cattle. I keep most of them about 2 miles down the road at the Cotterill farm there. So taking care of several groups of cattle there, and it takes anywhere from I usually give or take an hour there, depending on what needs to be done, an hour or two, and that's how the morning starts. And then from there, at this time of year, it'll be something like like I said, we'll be seeding clover. I go to a fair amount of auctions. I go to the cattle auction. I go to machinery auctions. And I have older equipment, so we're quite a bit of the time working on equipment. And I always said you can make payments on newer equipment, or you can make repairs on older equipment. I like the older equipment. That's usually what I have. So we're working on equipment a fair amount of time. And then coming up here, usually I got maybe 50,000 bushel of grain to haul. Usually that's March, April time frame, so that's coming up. And then, of course, in season, planting season to harvest season, we're doing the usual what everybody else is, working ground, planting, getting that done, and then mixing that in with making hay. That say 50 acres of hay, we a lot of times we'll stop doing the work on the planting end of things to squeeze hay in, because you only have so many good days to make hay. So if the sun's shining, we'll stop and do hay. So we're not the first ones getting done, but it's a continual process, and that's what my typical day is pretty much like.
Yeah, so I know you mentioned working on equipment, and I remember you coming in. I can't remember when it was,
Oh.
but I can see it on your like wrist right now,
Oh,
that
yeah.
injury and stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of maybe a bit of a gore warning, but
Yeah.
how did that happen? If you don't mind
That
sharing.
was just last year mowing hay, and that was a mistake I made in my own self. I know better then. I got into the disc mower. Not that it was running, it was changing blades.
Right.
And when you pull on one of the pods on there, they all turn. So you got to shove a crowbar or screwdriver in one at the end to hold them still. So I put a big screwdriver in there, and I'm pulling on a ratchet to tighten and loosen the knives. And of course, the screwdriver, even though it was a big one, it was kind of old. It snapped, it broke, and when that let loose, the inertia of my hand going one way just
It slid into.
it took
yeah.
off, and it went right into the blades that I just changed. And in my own behalf, I'm not the most safety-oriented person, but I should have been pulling towards me. Well,
You're pulling.
I was pulling right in line with the rest of the blades, and in it went. And I and to get done, I was still working on the thing, and I gashed it a second time. And so
you were like literally bleeding out from what you sounded
I
like,
was,
and you just kept working.
yeah. And then I was still, I don't know, almost 2 miles from home. So, and it was bleeding hard. So I was kind of wondering, I got to get to the hospital out of this deal. And
Yeah. Was that in that same area that you've had like some close calls a couple of other
yeah,
times?
yeah, yes, I have. We might get to that later, but
Yeah. I was looking at your like wrist as we were talking. I was like, we gotta mention that.
yeah, there were stitches inside, and then they had to pull it together outside. So there's 2 layer stitches, and it
Yeah.
was pretty deep.
It looks honestly.
It's healing now.
It's healing, but I'm just like, yeah.
I got pictures if you want.
But yeah, so well, I guess I would not call that a rewarding part of being a farmer. But what is the most rewarding part of being a farmer for you? What do you think?
Oh, I like a lot at this point, I guess, in my life is working with my boy. He's 25, stepson. He's, I don't know, 36 or something. Working with the family.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. Part of that is seeing a plan come together. Whether it's you plant the seed, you watch it through the summer, harvest, that's the whole circle of life coming together, the whole plan coming together. And the same with the cattle, getting calves, feeding them, getting them up till they're, heavy enough to take out. Just seeing everything progress. It's just, and you got to plot and plan, for all this stuff. And then, when you get to the end, just watching the plan come together is it's pretty rewarding. Other part for me is like I like equipment. I like my old tractors, and I got 14 old tractors.
Yeah.
Mostly all the international ones.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you're into that, I don't know. Some of the people that are into the tractors probably interested. I got cripe sakes. If you start near the bottom, I got a 656, a 756, an 826, a 1066, a Hydro 100. 1586, another 1586 with front assist. That's kind of a rare thing. A 3488. That's the last year International was in business. They made the 88 series. I got a 50, a 52, and a 5488 off front assist. And then I got the newest one I got is a little 85C Farmall loader tractor. And then my bigger tractors are they're 2008 305s. I got 2 of them. And in that year, that was International's was it their 20th year anniversary or something like that? And they made 100 of them out in I guess retrospect for they had a gold demonstrator series way back in the day. So they made 100 of these with gold paint on them. And I have both of mine. I have 2 of them that are the gold demonstrators.
Wow.
For that.
So you said like only 100. So
they only made 100.
So yeah, you have one of the 100.
I have 2 of them.
You have 2 of them.
I have 2 of those,
wow.
and
you have 2% of them.
Yeah, I have 2% of what's out. It's just
cool.
kind of a thing for me. I kind of like the old tractors and
you seem to know your stuff. You seem to know your stuff. I mean, you were rattling off all of those numbers.
Well,
and
I've
everything.
had them. Most of the tractors
like, wow.
I've got, I haven't got rid of many. I just kept them. So some people would be interested in that. Maybe not.
That's
everybody.
Really cool.
But that's kind of a rewarding thing for me that I can kind of collect and mess around with those and still use them, in what I'm doing. So it's not just a hobby. It's
how much of those then do you kind of use? I know you said
I use every one of those.
Really?
The 756 right now is kind of in the shop getting some work done. I haven't used that much, but all the other ones I use every one of them.
That's cool. So both a collector and it also is.
Yeah, kind of. I don't consider it too much of a collection because I use them all, but it kind of is, yes.
So, what do you think the most pressing issue in Sandusky County is related to farming, what would you say?
Well, there's all kinds of pressing issues. I don't think Sandusky County is particularly immune to what all the other counties are. A big thing right now, well, it's profitability, but for me, it's the high price of parts. I mean, you go to the parts store, everything is just so expensive, and of course, that cuts into profitability.
What would you say the strengths of the county is in terms of farming?
Sandusky County's pretty blessed with pretty good farm ground throughout. I mean, there's some pretty good, especially Ballville area, whatever, but the whole county's, there's pretty good farm ground there. And location is good. You're not far from the lake. You have Bungie. I know it's just out of the county, but not by a few miles. Poe at the other end. It's not far out of the county. Good markets. You know what's good about Sandusky County? The Soil and Water Conservation District, the FSA, and the natural resources. I'll toot your horn here, but you guys do a very good job here in the offices here. I've gone to other county offices, several of them, and I guess I've heard some complaints. And now being on a board member, I get to associate that with other counties a little bit, and I haven't heard anybody compliment the Soil and Water or Natural Resources FSA offices like they do at Sandusky County. You guys really, you get the messages out there, just like this podcast or something else, bringing the alertness of the programs and stuff out to people. You guys do a very good job. As far as Sandusky County goes, they're one of the best.
Well, we definitely appreciate that. I would definitely attribute that a lot to Megan and Beth Ann especially.
Oh, right.
Because they're like the heartbeat of the whole. I'm just the
squirrel.
The everything else, but they really are the heartbeats of all the programs, and they know their stuff really well.
Yeah, they're very helpful. They go out of their way to help you. They're very personable. They're just great. I can't say enough about the work they do.
Friendly with the producers, know their stuff, and if there's a way that we can help out, we'll help out. And I've been here for I'll just say like a year and a half now, and I've kind of now finally gotten to know a lot of the people. So when they come in, I'll be like, oh, now I can kind of interact and everything too. And since I've gone through some of the stuff before, it's good to hear from someone that we are doing a good job.
And I've talked to other producers. Say the same thing. The gals here are just great. You guys doing your job very, very well. Yeah. Couldn't ask for more. And the H2O program has brought a lot of money into Sandusky County that gets used around the county.
I guess with kind of the weather patterns around here kind of seem like they're kind of ever changing. I guess that's kind of Ohio in general. They're kind of extreme in general. How does that affect your work on the farm, or just I guess in general?
It does, and whether you agree with climate change or not, I think everybody pretty much is the consensus. It seems like
stuff's happening.
Like when we get rains, it's more severe rains, more severe weather events, and it's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to affect your work some, and you can't really prepare a lot.
You just got to adapt.
You got to adapt some, and part of that is we'll be making hay. It's kind of a story there, but the wind comes through there. Anybody who's baled hay can relate to that. Them little tornadoes come through. When I was young, I baled hay since I was, 6 or 7 years old, when all I could do was pushing the clutch when Dad whistled, and he was stacking hay in the back, and I could hold the clutch till he came up and took it out of gear. I've baled hay since then. And I can remember, little tornadoes coming through. But I tell you what, there's not a year go by we don't have 2 or 3 times it just comes through and takes the hay and blows it all over. And that's not a major thing, but these heavy rain events that come through, cover crops do a lot for that. I mean, if you don't have the hard rain coming down and hitting bare dirt, that's not as good a scenario as it hitting, cover, whether it's cover crops or minimum till you have cover there on the ground. I guess organic matter helps just absorbing the heavy rainfalls. So what you can do to build soil health, soil structure, cover crops do that. I guess that's the main thing it could work on for that.
Gotcha. So I guess before we go to the second kind of half of our podcast for today, these are kind of 2 questions in tandem. Where do you see farming heading in the future? And then what advice do you have for the next generation of farmers?
The future of farming heading, I'm very optimistic. I guess I've always been optimistic. And farming's a cyclical thing where, there's no definite path that it's going to have its ups, it's going to have its downs. But all in all, I mean, we've had the last several years here. We've been very fortunate that we've had really good yields. Well, sooner or later, you're not going to have that. You're going to have to save some money for rainy days. It's not always going to be roses all the time, but in the long haul, it's a great profession to be in. There's a show I watch. It's called Cow Guy Close, not close, but close. He closes the market, CLOSE, close.
Okay.
And he's very good at it. If you ever, it's on RFD TV. If you ever get to watch that, some of you might have seen it. But he covers the markets, the economy, common sense kind of stuff, a little bit of politics and stuff. But it's a very good show. And on his show, he was saying how he's very optimistic in farming. He was saying how the doctors and lawyers drive Cadillacs and Porsches now. He said down the road it's going to be farmers driving Cadillacs and Porsches. Maybe not so much literally, but figuratively. The farmers are going to be making good money. There's always a need for the farmers to feed the world, for the products. It's a thing to be in. Long term, I'm very optimistic that down the road it's going to be profitable and the thing to be in.
It's cool how farming's been around for so long in our
and the evolution of farming. I mean, and I'm old enough to remember when, oh, cripe sakes, well, my grandpa would tell me the stories of farming with horses, and I still go to the Amish fairly often. I watch them. They still farm with horses, and they do the shocks and stuff. I go down there fairly often, and you see that. But to see the progression, I guess at even of my age, the progression of, equipment was 4-row, then 8-row, and now a lot of people have 24-row planters. It's so much automation to technology that's there. It was manual, intensive back in the day, and so much more now. The technology has you working hydraulics and equipment and stuff. It's a lot less intensive. So there's just a major amount of change.
Yeah.
In that I've seen even in my lifetime.
It's crazy because I'm kind of a history nut and stuff. So when I was in my classes, back in the day, it's not back in the day. It's only been a couple years. But when we were talking about like the history of like human civilization, whenever we talked about like agriculture and how it like evolved, the fact that in such a short span of time in the general scheme of things, in the past 100 or even 50 or even 30, 20 years, it's progressed so far that stuff can be so much more, I guess, kind of automated in a way, but less labor and stuff. But I just find it really fascinating. Obviously, I think that's where it's heading in the future, but that means that we'll most likely be able to get more yields per.
Right. Along those lines, if you go back and look at the national average, say the national corn average over the years, how it's steadily increased. I can remember when it was 130 or something, but
yeah,
I mean that tells you how farming has evolved into. It's so much better than it used to be.
Are you talking about bushels
per acre? Yes.
I think it's like 189. Does
that
sound
now.
Right to you? Yeah.
And if you go back, look at it. 40 years ago, if it was somewhere around 100 then, I mean, we've doubled it easy in 50 years or whatever it is. But that's an interesting chart just to show you the evolution of farming, how it's progressed in technology, whether it's the equipment, the technology of the seed technology, the seed varieties. There's so many things in there that it's just increased, and it looks like it's going to keep increasing.
So for that next generation, do you have any words of wisdom for the next generation?
That's a tough one. When I started farming, there wasn't a lot of money in farming. It was pretty easy to get started, a lot easier, but nobody, there wasn't much money in it. But now, especially after a few good years of farming, it's very competitive. And for a person, a young kid to get started in farming, you almost have to know somebody, be born into it. You can't just go out there.
Yeah.
And you can't, I know several people would like to find more ground for their young kids, like even mine coming up is 25, and he would like to pick up some ground. Well, it's just so competitive. It's almost non-existent to be able to do that.
So basically, kind of like maybe start like trying to get in with like someone and working with them, and then maybe like learning from there, and possibly eventually getting enough money that you can possibly buy ground.
Yeah, and that's a long road
That's
to
a
hoe.
whole. That's
There.
yeah.
But for me, I started with older farmers. If I could go in and supply the labor, I helped them out
Yeah.
when they retired. They either sold me the farm or they rented me the farm, to get my feet in the door. But you got to supply something like that. Which, if you got an older farmer, you can supply the labor or help them out. That's one way. It's really tough I guess for a young person, it would be like you're going to have to spend some hours. You're going to have to put some time in. You got to do some work. You got to work long hours. Like when I started, it was, go from a job to a job.
Yeah.
And and it's just a progression and probably a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. I don't know. That's a good question. What?
Yeah, I guess coming from my generation, I feel like a lot of the people in my generation kind of bounce around like jobs and don't stick with something for a really long period of time. It's like, oh, like our attention spans are so short now because of, technology and everything. Yeah. I feel like that's something that like you need to like keep going with it, keep with it, and then maybe something will pay off and stuff. But as you said, it is difficult to get into, but if you just continue to work at it, there might be some payoff in the future for it.
You have to act fast sometimes. You got to be ready for what opportunity comes and capitalize on that. It's just a tough thing.
This Earth Day, what if we all made one small change? Because when millions of people do one thing, whether it's swapping out a single-use plastic, planting a tree, biking instead of driving, or simply learning something new, we create something powerful, a world that stays beautiful for the next generation. This April 22nd, join the global movement not just on Earth Day, but every day. Let's make a difference together. Happy Earth Day. All right, so how do you approach sustainable farming practices / what H2 Ohio or any other conservation practices are you currently using on your farm?
Okay, something that I've been using for a long time, even before the program, but of course would be cover crops. When the first program came in, I would do cover crops on a 10, maybe 20%, but when they had the program to help, cost share, it made it easier to jump up acreage on that until all my bean ground now goes to a cover crop that'll go to corn next year. And then a lot of times I've had corn, I would aerial apply a cover crop to that. In the last couple of years I haven't. We've just had such a dry fall that it hasn't worked well. Other things, the variable rate technology, I think they paid for that in the first round of H2O. I don't know about this one.
I think so, yeah.
I've been using that on the VRT for fertilizer. It was really important on lime, big thing with that. And the other thing would be like the manure application. We have access to 4 hog barns at my farm, and well, I guess that's a big part of H2 Ohio is the manure runoff, phosphorus load on ground. And so I have cover crops I put out, and we spread the manure on cover crops. Or sometimes in the spring, if we do it early, we'll work it in and then usually plant corn. But mostly I've been applying the manure to a live cover crop and applying it that way. The other thing would be, tile. I had on the first one, there was tile control structures. I put a couple of those in. That would be the main things that I've used on that.
Seems like you've used like most, if not all, of the stuff that was on the first like wave of H2 Ohio, from what it sounds like, from what I remember.
Yeah.
It seems like it. Are there any, I guess, innovative techniques or tools that you've adopted recently, kind of like outside of like the H2 Ohio thing, just in general, or maybe in
No,
H2
the other
Ohio?
thing I'd be interested in that is the fall strip till with the deep placement of phosphorus, like a soil warrior type thing or something like that. Takes quite an initial investment to do that. That's something I've been interested in for a while. Down the road, I plan on maybe trying that. Haven't got there yet, but that'd be the next thing. And other than that, using on the farm, of course, there's a lot of like auto steer. And when that first came out, and we got, several tractors on that with planting. The sprayer is a big thing. Even I have the auto steer, like when we're striking out rows for mowing hay. We use that. Even on, like I'm seeding clover now, I have a light bar to follow for that. So, auto GPS is a big thing for most farms on.
So yeah, how did the innovation of GPS kind of like change farming for you.
Yeah, boy, it has. At first looking at that, when it first coming in, I was like, oh, well, can you use that? And we'll see what happens with it. But there's some application that's invaluable anymore once you got to use it, especially for spraying. If you're out in the field spraying, like if I'm spraying, I have a whole cover crop of clover, you can't see where you're going. And with the foam markers from the old days, you're always looking off to the side. With auto steer, you don't have overlap, you don't have misses. You can concentrate on your pressures and everything else that's going on. It's so valuable for that, and it's just it eases the working ground. I guess when I put the boys out there, you can just put an A/B line. You go out and you put your how wide your implement there. It does make it easier at the end of the day, but some long fields, if you don't have a strip that's 3 foot wide and you got a 30-foot tool to pick that up, everything works out just nice, and it's just great. Most everybody probably has that, now a lot of people do, and it's just invaluable, really.
Yeah,
you sure don't go back. Once you've had it, you don't go back.
It's one of the, honestly, probably one of the best innovations that we've had as a society, almost ever.
Yeah.
Having maps and stuff right at our fingertips is really useful, and for farming and stuff as well.
Well, just everybody who drives, when you tell them you got to go somewhere or tell them to come to your place, they'll just GPS it in your phone and get you there. Same kind of thing. Other thing is we have row shutoffs on the planter, and we have a lot of cricks in our area with fields that aren't square and straight, and that row shutoff on there that's pretty handy too. I really like that a lot.
As someone who kind of likes stuff to be uniform in a way,
Yes.
I feel like if I didn't have GPS or anything like that, I would be dead in the water, because I would be so particular about I want this to be as straight or as uniform as possible.
It is. They're pretty fields. When you go by, driving by the road, you can tell where there's auto steer and there's road shutoffs now. You can tell going down, and it is pretty to see.
What advice would you give to farmers looking to reduce their environmental impact?
Oh, probably the tried and true old things of, reducing wind, water erosion, with cover crops, whether it's you got to implement maybe a waterway or whatever it takes if, when you have a problem to address that. Tile helps on that too. I mean, as far as environmental impact, if your water gets saturated, it's more likely to run off, and that's a big investment. But when we have tile, we took ground that was pretty wet and would stay saturated, would actually have runoff a lot easier than when it got tiled. It soaks in the ground, it didn't run off as much. There's an environmental impact there. Back to cover crops. A lot of stuff goes back to cover crops on this that, it just, it helps build the soil, it helps hold it in place. And
yeah. So I thought this was an interesting question. How do you balance productivity and conservation on the farm? How do you do that? How do you handle that?
Basically, if you everything you do, you want to show a profit on. It doesn't always come down to being a conservation project that you're working on. Doesn't always necessarily prove to be profitable, but it's something you have to do a lot of times. I'm fortunate enough now that I'm far enough along that I can spend some money on some conservation projects, and it doesn't have to actually show a profit back to me, but it's the right thing to do. And then so much of this is long term. You have to look at it long term. If I got to spend some money now, it won't give me an immediate return, but it's something you have to do. As a good steward of the land. It's not always just cut and dried. Look what I can do right now. There's so many long-term impacts, and you just got to be able to look down the road.
What benefits have you seen through employing cover crops on the farm and having kind of a consistent crop rotation?
Benefits to the farm, I guess. Water infiltration. We see, these heavy rains sometimes, and I can remember years ago if we worked the soil, you worked it a little too much, too fine, you would have ponding, where I don't see that now with soil structure. The soil tilt is better with, maybe not tilling it so much that you have cover crops on it, building it up, and of course that leads to more worms, more wormholes at channeling water down. A lot of it is the water infiltration rate when you get a heavy rain and you see what's going on there.
How do these conservation practices help you adapt to those changing weather patterns that we kind of talked about earlier?
The main thing for me is these heavy rains is when you get, if you have an extended dry spell, you got to weather that too. But if you have, what helps with that is, you don't want heavy compacted hard soil. You want some organic matter in there. Your soil structure needs to be good. In heavy rains, you don't want the big ponding areas, and it all comes, cover crops does a lot for that. And also, no-till, or how you work the soil and the conditions that you plan into. You don't want to work it, too fine. And
so I guess another interesting question is, and you kind of covered this a little bit, but what advice would you give to farmers who are hesitant to adopt conservation methods? I know obviously there's like a cost involved with that when it comes to like your productivity and profitability. What advice would you say about that?
Well, if you're hesitant to adopt the conservation methods, again, you got to look long term with these things. It's not so much worried about the immediate payoff, but it's long term. And the other thing is planning ahead with these things.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just go out and do it. You plan ahead. Well, that goes with the long term, but you have to plan on what you're going to do. You put a cover crop out, how are you going to kill it? Do you want something that overwinter and kill itself? Do you want something that grows up fast and quick? Cereal rye can get, if you have too much rain, cereal rye can get ahead of you and get too tall. The next thing down would be just like wheat, or then barley. It's easy to kill. Doesn't grow quite so fast. You won't have so much of a problem with it. A lot of planning is involved with that, I guess.
So how would you measure the success of your specific conservation efforts? Would it kind of be through like what we hear about like just H2 Ohio, like statewide or like WLEB wide, or in general, how would you measure that?
Just, I guess, my overall contentment with my program. What do I need to change? What am I looking forward to? A lot of that's in the mirror, looking back. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? I'm going to do this again if I, like I've seen my results. A lot of it just comes back down to that. You want to measure your success in dollars, but I guess you just back to that again. You just can't always just measure it in dollars.
So I'm going to combine these two together. So how has the H2 Ohio program helped your operation, and or why should farmers / producers adopt H2 Ohio?
It's helped my operation by giving me the courage to do more acres that I normally would do if I would start at maybe, say I was doing 20% and it worked decent. I am a lot more apt to take it into 80% or whatever if I'll do it on a larger scale if I'm getting an incentive like that. If they're going to help pay for cost share and stuff like that. And that's got me going in the beginning. I had a small acreage doing this. And when I first did the program there, with the incentive that he had to do that, I went out and I wouldn't say I went whole hog, but I did a lot more than I normally would without being in the program. And I think most farmers, they ought to at least sign up for the H2 Ohio program, because it leaves your options open. It's a good program, and you have 4 or 5 different things you can actually do, and you don't have to do every one of them. You can do any one you want. If you signed up at least for it and you don't do anything, you're not penalized.
Yeah, you're not penalized.
But then, you can do any 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you want to do with them. It's changing environment there on your farm, at least with mine it is. What things you want to do. And I thought some of these I might not want to do. And the more I got into it, I'm like, well, this one worked good. I'm interested in trying this one here. And, being signed up for it at least allows you the opportunity to, do that and get, cost share with it.
Yeah. Okay. So another question that I just thought of. What is your favorite H2 Ohio practice? What would you say would be your personal favorite out of them?
Right now, probably, being I have access to manure like it is, the one I pay the most attention to would be the more manure program.
Okay.
Because I have the cover crops, and in the first one, I had a nice field of clover growing, and they wouldn't cost share if I put manure on that. And this new one, they changed that, so now that I can, and I'm really kind of looking forward to putting the hog manure on that standing clover in that August time frame, and that clover just sucks that in, takes it in, it holds it in place, and as opposed to just putting on ground and working it in, and then planting a cover crop would work too, but to just leave it there, the cover crops hold that. I'm really happy with what I've seen on this. It holds it there, and I'll let that clover winter over, and then I'll spray that in the springtime, and I'll sometimes no-till into it. If it's too dry, you got to have a plan B because clover will suck the moisture out. We have a big offset disc. We'll go in there and we'll do it that way. But all the nutrients, a lot of the nutrients are still in that clover. That clover takes it up, the NPK off the hog manure, and it pays decent on that. So I'm intrigued with that one probably the most.
All right, so now is the time that you've all been waiting for, possibly. Do you have any fun or interesting farming stories that you would like to share, Don?
Oh, well, there's the time my brother shot me. I suppose that was. This is a long time ago, though. But I was probably.
This is a farm story?
Well, yeah, I was on the farm, and in the farm, I grew up hunting and trapping.
Yeah.
And I was probably 14. And I wanted to get a shotgun. Well, they finally allowed me to get one when my brother said he wanted one too. So Christmas morning, we got the shotguns. We went out that morning hunting. It was probably gifts are open. We went hunting. I got to the end of the farm, didn't see anything, and then I get to the end of the farm down there where the creek is, and I see my buddy Herb there, and he's checking traps, which we had traps out. So I went through the brush, and I went down there, and I was talking to him, what did you get? And all of a sudden we hear, rabbit, boom! And the next thing I knew, I got bird shot in my butt and my leg, because he pegged us on Christmas morning.
Wow.
So we went back up to the house, and I go in the house, and my mom was there at the kitchen. Well, how'd it go? I'm like, well, Bob shot me. She goes, don't even joke about that. That's not funny. And
seriously.
And I turned sideways and I had, blood stains in my britches there. So off to the hospital we go. Oh, she was livid. So.
Oh, that's.
That was better than the time. I guess it was a couple years after that. We was woodchuck hunting. I had my gun over the end of the barrel and I hit some brush and it went off and took off half my thumb. It was another trip to the hospital.
Jeez. You got scars all over.
Oh, crap. I got to the hospital a few times.
Wow.
But probably an interesting one that's more recent was I have my cattle down the road, 2 miles down the road. And then the one pin for the big steers, they're, say, 13, 14, 1,500 pounds, finished steers. There's probably 25 of them in the lot there. So the phone rings in the middle of, it's probably about 12:30 in the morning. The phone rings in the middle of the night like that. It's never a good thing. So
yeah.
It was the neighbor down there. He calls. He says, I'm looking out my kitchen window and there's a bunch of steers in my backyard. Well, I can imagine their minds. So off I run down there, and the whole time you're thinking, how's this going to end? Oh, they're out there. It's pitch black. It was foggy. You couldn't see a thing. And I get down there, and how long is this going to take? Where's this going to end? So I pull in the drive, and I shine my light down there in his yard, and all you see is a bunch of eyeballs, and they're all out there.
So the first staring at you.
Yeah, so the first thing I got to do is turn on as many lights as I can around the barn so they'll see it and come towards it. And then I got to check the perimeter of the fence to, fix where they got out, or we'll just put them in, they'll get out again. So I got that done, and we went over there. That he was up, and the neighbor down the road, Dusty Watson, was there, the other board member. Well, it's almost in his backyard. So he comes up and says, I can help you for an hour. He goes, that's all I can give you. And I'm like, well, gee, thanks, but I don't know what that's about. But it turned out he was leaving to go to vacation. The plane was leaving, so they had to leave pretty soon. But I didn't ask him at the time. I just thought he's like, I'll give you an hour here, and that's it, and then I'm leaving.
Oh, I guess if he was going to vacation.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. So anyway, we got him up towards the house and got him up by the barn there. Half of them ran in, half of them circled around the house, went back to the yard, and we ran them around again. And fortunately, they were all calm enough. And within, an hour and a half or something after that, we got them in, and the last ones went in the machinery shed, and we got them in from there. But that's just a terrible feeling when you go there and you see them all. And it was so dark. It was
You're like, how am I going to get these guys
Oh, yeah.
back?
It's like, I'm like, will this still be going on tomorrow, the next day? We've had cattle get off the neighbors before, and it was weeks later before they finally caught them all.
Came back, yeah. I think you mentioned at some point when we were talking about doing the podcast, didn't you say you almost got hit by a train once?
Oh,
isn't
did
that the same area as your
was making hay in that same field. It was late in the evening. We got done baling hay, so I hooked the truck and I was pulling 2 wagons, come up over the road, and there's tracks there, and as I'm going over the tracks, the sun's setting right in the rail, so I look that way, and it's bright.
It's a glare or
something.
Yeah,
and I start going over. All of a sudden I hear a train whistle. Well, we grew up with the tracks next to us, and the first thing I think when I hear a train whistle is, oh, stupid train, and because I hear it all the time, I'm almost immune to it. Well, all of a sudden it hit me like, oh, train tracks, train whistle. And so I nail it. I get on the gas and I see the train and I'm getting over it. And I'll be darned if he didn't catch about the last 2-3 foot of that back hay wagon.
So he did. He
clip caught it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, he didn't clip it. It just.
It
was a kicker bale wagons with racks. He hit it and it just flew everywhere.
Okay.
The wagon went, the racks went, hay all over the place, and that was. Oh, I don't know. It's been some years ago, not that long ago, but that was a mess. So.
So yeah. And that was in the same field that you got.
Yeah, right. That was probably
I
don't know 200-300 foot from where I cut my wrist up.
Yeah, so watch that area.
Oh, crap. Yeah, I had bad luck there. And then there's been a time, back when we used to haul a lot of grain in with gravity wagons. I took off with 3 gravity wagons of corn going to the elevator. And you're going down the road, you're not pulling them fast. By the time I pulled on the scale, I had 2. I looked back and I had 2. So I'm like, there's a full load of corn somewhere between here and... Well, I know I seen it in the last half mile, but just around the corner, it rolled up in somebody's yard just off from the elevator there. So that was kind of a scare there for a while too. So, other ones, I guess when we was loading hay once, we was up in the mile. We was younger then. So we was up in the hay mile, which is, 10 foot high, and we was 10, 12 stacks up in the mile. We was a good 20 foot up in the air. Throwing hay up there to my brother, he'd stack. I'd take off the elevator, throw it to my brother, and he kept walking back, stacking one, walking back, stacking one. Till he started along the wall, and we got down to the mile. You can see where this story's going. I throw one up there. He backed up and stepped right off the edge of the mile, and he was gone. So the next thing I know, he's riding up the elevator. Fortunately, we cleaned the mile all out, and there was a big pile of shaft down there. He landed in it, climbs back up, and we start stacking again. But that could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well.
That's part of the fun of being a farmer. I mean, it's an eventful life. I'd rather work at something that I enjoy and put in some time, 16-hour days that I enjoy. And you can leave, but you just don't because you want to stay there and get it done. As opposed to watching the clock, even if you're working 8 hours, you're there looking at the clock, a job you don't like. And I would much rather work 16 hours at a job that I really enjoy and have a passion for.
Here's a look into Sandusky County Soil and Water's upcoming events as well as deadlines to look out for. If you ordered Ford plugs for CRP mid-contract management or otherwise, the pickup date will be on May 16th at Heartland Farms. As for Zach's outreach programs, he'll be putting on craft plant stakes programs on March 24th from 4 to 5 p.m. at Burchard Public Library and March 30th from 4 to 5 p.m. at Clyde Public Library. Zach will also be reading a children's story at Pottery Perfection's Paint Me a Story event on March 26th at 5:30. As always, he'll be continuing his monthly PokeCon series at Clyde Public Library on the first Thursday of every month starting at 5:15. Zach will be putting on a nature journaling program for Gibsonburg, Burchard, and Woodville Public Libraries on April 7th, 14th, and 20th respectively starting at 4 p.m. Lastly, in May, Zach will be hosting multiple birding programs, with a beginning birding program at Gibsonburg Public Library on May 5th at 4 p.m., and 2 Avians for Amateurs birding hikes at 8 a.m. on May 11th and 13th at Pickerel Creek Wildlife Area. Be sure to keep an eye out on Facebook for these programs and any more we may offer in the future. That wraps up today's episode of the One Stop Crop Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed your time with us and stay tuned for more podcast episodes in the future. If you'd like to contact us here at the office, please email us at sanduskycountyswcd@gmail.com or call us at 419-334-6324. Be sure to remember us as your one-stop shop for all things farming, conservation, and the environment here in Sandusky County, and thank you so much for listening in.